Ecigsopedia, all about electronic cigarettes.
Vaping is on the rise, but is it safe? There's no doubt about it. Times have changed. Where once you'd find a bunch of smokers huddled by the door of a bar, shrouded in a miasma of cigarette smoke, these days you're more likely to see folks puffing away on brightly colored, futuristic-looking tubes emitting scents of mint, tiramisu, or banana dessert, inside as well as out. But, other considerations aside, the key question has to be, is it safe to use e-cigarettes, aka vaporizers, aka electronic nicotine delivery systems, or ENDS? Cigarettes chemical cocktail. Well, safe can be a relative term, and there's irrefutable medical proof that e-cigs cause less physical damage to users than bought or rolled traditional smokes. Users are definitely not pumping the same heady cocktail of different chemicals and carcinogens into their system every time they spark up. Cancer Research UK estimates there are 5,000 potentially harmful chemicals in a cigarette, giving arsenic, carbon monoxide, benzene, and formaldehyde as examples. Other sources estimate there are as many as 7,000. By far the most infamous is tar, which is itself a collection of particles suspended in cigarette smoke, together causing a sticky brown residue that coats teeth, nails, hair, and lungs, and contains carcinogens including benzopryene. The good news for vapers, the accepted collective noun for users of electronic nicotine delivery systems, is that e-cigs don't contain any tar. It's tar that kills, not nicotine. Back in 1976, in a study published in the British Medical Journal regarding low-tar cigarettes with medium nicotine, Professor Michael Russell observed people smoke for nicotine but they die from tar. He concluded that the harm from smoking is caused primarily by the burning of the tobacco that acts as the vehicle for nicotine. By contrast, non-tobacco nicotine products are considerably less harmful. But how can addicts get their hit without lighting up? According to the Scientific American, e-cigs use a small heated coil to vaporize a nicotine-laced solution into an aerosol mist. By inhaling the mist, users enjoy the same satisfaction they would get from an ordinary cigarette, but do not expose themselves to tobacco. How cigarettes reward smokers. The key element that keeps people turning to cigarettes is a deeply ingrained physical and psychological addiction. However they dress it up, most smokers know the health risks and would love to quit. But the highly addictive nature of nicotine, there are an estimated 50 million addicts in the US alone, means that kicking the habit is almost as hard as kicking heroin or crack. The drug activates reward pathways and makes smokers feel happy by boosting dopamine levels. But this happy kick doesn't last long. What's more, over time, neurological changes in cigarette smokers result in addiction. The need to keep replicating that feeling of being rewarded for smoking becomes sustained and ingrained. Long-term research is needed. The UK's Action on Smoking and Health, ASH, a campaigning group that aims to eliminate the harm caused by tobacco, concluded in a report in June 2014 that there is no doubt that using e-cigarettes is safer than smoking cigarettes. It goes on to point out, and this is a fact drilled home again and again by health campaigners, that there is no long-term research into the health risks of vaping because the technology simply hasn't been in widespread use for long enough to gather such data. By contrast, there is clear and medically accepted data that says cigarette smoking is responsible for around 1 in 5 deaths in the USA and is the leading cause of preventable death in the UK. A study by the US Food and Drug Administration has raised concerns about the possibility of toxins being released in some vaping devices during the process of vaporization. While in another study, in the journal Circulation, researchers scrutinized a range of data and found evidence that vaping delivers higher levels of nanoparticles, particles too minuscule to be seen even with a microscope, which may in turn have causal links with asthma, stroke, heart disease, and diabetes. There are also concerns that the presence of solvents in which flavorings and nicotine have been dissolved has taken on a new dimension since makers increased the device's voltage to boost the nicotine hit and better satisfy the ravings of users. The solvents break down at the higher temperatures, converting into potentially harmful carbonyls, some of which have been proven to have a causal relationship with some cancers. The safer alternative. But no one is claiming that e-cigs are a completely safe and harm-free alternative to this highly addictive and deadly pastime. They can't. The research just isn't there. But as Michael Siegel, MD, MPH, a professor at Boston University School of Public Health puts it, obviously it would be best if smokers could quit completely. But if that's not possible, I think they'd be a lot better off with e-cigarettes. They're a safer alternative. And while using vaporizers as an alternative to an addiction to smoking cigarettes may have health implications that are as yet unknown, research undertaken in Auckland, New Zealand concluded that ENDS have a low toxicity profile and the adverse effects from using them are, at worst, far milder than the alternative. Regulation not on the horizon. Perhaps the most consistently cited factor in the whirling eddy of discussion surrounding the safety of vaping is the lack of any clear and consistent regulation. There is a huge disparity between the mechanisms, oils, strength, and possible toxicity of materials available at the moment. So, it is vital that anyone considering swapping cigarettes for one of the increasingly popular devices takes a good look at the various retailers in the market and opts for one with a highly visible profile that offers plenty of advice and guidance. While every manufacturer undoubtedly wants your hard-earned dollar, some are more scrupulous in how they go about getting it than others.
Ecigsopedia. To find out more, go to ecigsopedia.com and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.